So why did I choose to live in Maryland and even the United States? So start big. I don't know that I chose the United States so much as it chose me. Like, that's where my passport is from, even though I was born abroad and never lived there. And then that's where my parents dropped me off with an older stepsister who was willing to take me in, and that was in Houston. And then I ended up going to Dallas for college, and then I went straight into the Army. And then by the time I got out of the Army 6.5 years later, I was getting married to another soldier, Mr. Knitting Cult Lady, who was a warrant officer pilot who was going into the special operations. And so he had about 5 years left. So we knew he was going to do that and retire. So obviously I didn't have really any chance to live abroad. And then finally, we were literally on the trip. So we were going to spend 2 years traveling the world. I wanted to write a book called Chasing Summer. And Knitting Cult Baby was 4, so it was the perfect age to go do it. And then we were on the last flight out of Buenos Aires for COVID and ended up having a completely different life. So we came back. We had already sold our house. And we didn't know where we were going to live, so we ended up house sitting for folks for a while, and then we ended up in a 44-foot RV that we had purchased the summer before. And so we just decided to full-time in the RV and drive around the country. And Mr. Knitting Cult Lady wanted to hit all the states that he hadn't been to yet, so he could have driven all 50 states. And so we literally full-timed in an RV for 4 months, and I wasn't so public then. I was sharing everything on my Facebook. I was writing Uncultured. Every day we would travel no more than 4 hours, and I would sit there and I would write part of the draft of Uncultured. That's my book about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and then going into the cult of the U.S. Army. You can get signed copies of that here, this time in the RV, or listen to me read it to you wherever you get your audiobooks, including Spotify Premium. So we drove all around the country, and some of the time we just joked it was just like the campaign of all of our friends being like, come here and start a commune with us. We looked pretty seriously at Rhode Island because we had good friends there, and also because I at the time was raising Knitting Cult Baby in Portuguese, and there was a lot of Portuguese who settled in Rhode Island, a lot of Brazilians who settled in Boston. I was also doing my master's degree at Harvard, even though it was all online because of COVID. So we were looking at that area pretty hard, but then we ended up looking at the DC area and liking it a bit more. We actually lived for a month just in an Airbnb on Capitol Hill just so we could see and make sure we liked it. At the time, we didn't really know what my future was. I was getting this master's degree in organizational psychology. I was writing a book. I was building a little corporate consulting company. I had previously worked in veteran services and was thinking about politics, and so we didn't know what we were going to do. And anyway, all this to say, we were with some friends in Seattle, all dealing with COVID, and we were like, why don't we just live in Maryland? And why Maryland specifically is because it's a state that's very good for disabled veterans. So Mr. Knitting Cult Lady and I are both 100% disabled veterans, and we were like, all right, it's good to be in Maryland. It's close to DC. My best friend Danielle was here at the time working in FEMA, and so we just sort of picked that. And we love to say that, we know we live in the best place in the country because we drove all around and we picked it. A couple months later, I would sell my book in this kind of life-changing book deal and buy Mr. Knitting Cult Lady an airplane called a Mooney. I sold my cult book and bought him an airplane called a Mooney. And turned out we were living very close to the country's oldest continuous airfield, private airfield. Maybe it wasn't as random as I thought. Anyway, we no longer have the airplane, but now we have this much smaller RV and we are traveling around the country. We got it all branded with Knitting Cult Lady stuff and the cover of the new book. They did not give us any trouble coming back across the border. We crossed back in from Canada, and now we're going through Idaho. We're going to be in Leavenworth, Washington tomorrow, seeing some family and hanging out there. And then we are going on to Seattle. Probably an event in Seattle on the 12th, by the way, and an earlier one in Tacoma. So stay tuned. fun to be back on West Coast time.